When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Skims or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling and for shoppers buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/income.
This is The Planted Runner. I'm Coach Claire Bartholic. Today, we're going to be doing something a little different. I'm going to let you listen in on a coaching call for one of my runners on the PR team. I thought it would be a fun way for you to hear what it would be like, and you might just hear the answers to questions that you'd like to ask. I'm going to be talking to Danny, a runner from Singapore who is training for both Sydney and Chicago. And he wants to know if the tune-up races he has planned make sense for his goals. Let's find out. Welcome to The Planted Runner. I'm Coach Claire Bartholic, and my mission is to help you improve your running, your mindset, and your life with science-backed training and plant-based nutrition. Today, I'm talking to PR teammate Danny, and I'm just going to read you the intro that he wrote for himself because it's awesome. Danny spent his first 4 decades avoiding cardio, or any sport for that matter, before hitting a midlife crisis. After dropping 20 kilograms, a friend promptly scammed him into running a full marathon as his first race ever. Plot twist, the friend did not start due to injury, leaving him to suffer the 42.2 kilometers alone. He's been addicted ever since. Now he's obsessed with the mental grit of the sport and can be found at ZDanny when not busy drenching his kit in Singapore's humidity while battling his shoe shopping addiction. We have runners from all over the world on the team, and this was such a fun conversation that I know you'll enjoy. And if you want me to spell out his Instagram handle for you, it's ZIDANIEY. So follow him there on Instagram. And of course, if you want to get in on the fun, what are you waiting for? Learn more about the PR team and sign up today at theplantedrunner.com/group. I'll mention all of the details and the benefits later on in the show, of course, but feel free to head to theplantedrunner.com/group right now. And now here is my coaching call with your teammate, Danny. Welcome to The Planted Runner, Danny.
Hi, Claire. Thank you for having me in the podcast. Look forward to our chatting today.
Yeah, absolutely. We're doing something a little bit different with this episode. We are doing a coaching call with one of the members of the PR team. I had this suggestion from a different member, and Danny, you raised your hand and you wanted to have a coaching call recorded on the podcast. So we are just going to free flow here as if no one is listening. And you're just going to let me know what you want to talk about and we'll go from there. So, Danny, tell me what you'd like to talk about today.
Yeah. So I've only been running regularly, in fact, running at all in the last 2 years. And I am so fortunate that I found the team in PR team extraordinarily supportive, and I learned a lot, not just from the team, obviously from you two. And then I'm as most runners do, I'm very ambitious with my year of running. So I have a couple of races planned already for this year, and I wanted to get your thoughts, feedback on how I should strategize these races this year.
Okay, so I took a look at your schedule or what you're planning. And the big race this year is the Sydney Marathon, and that is in August. And then you also are lucky enough to be going to Chicago as well in October. Is that right?
Absolutely. But I'm cooked because that's like 6 weeks after Sydney. So I
Yeah.
don't know how to do it.
Well, no problem. We can do it. So you've said that Sydney is your A race. So that's good. So when you're doing back-to-back marathons like that, a lot of people do, Tokyo and London or Tokyo and Boston or even London and Boston. And they're these big races that are close together. So what I first want my athlete to do is pick the one that you would prefer to be your goal race. And so you've said that's Sydney, which is great. The nice thing is you have Chicago as a backup. So let's say something terrible happens in Sydney, you might be able to save your legs and, have Chicago as a redemption run. But hopefully, if all goes well, Sydney is your magical race and Chicago is a fun run. What I see is sometimes athletes get in trouble when they want both of them to be their A race. And that sometimes is possible, especially with someone like you who is, you have young legs. You haven't been doing this for very long. So it is possible that you could have a great race in Sydney and have an even better race in Chicago 6 weeks later. But I wouldn't count on that. But you never know. You never know.
There it is. Thanks, Claire. And maybe just to add a little on that. So I'm thinking 6 weeks is not enough to obviously have A races both. Obviously, right. In both occasions, which I totally understand. Like it's not enough recovery and all that. But so and that's why the Chicago one. Well, you said it might be a redemption run, but to me, I felt like okay, I'm not going to hope much from the second one. But is that a good approach, or you think something else I need to take into account on how should I prepare? I know it's still months ahead, but just overall.
So I would first just have a flexible mindset about both of them. So yes, you can have in your head, Sydney is going to be the goal race and then Chicago will be the backup race or the fun race, but that may flip depending on circumstances. So go ahead and dream for the best, but also be flexible enough to understand that it might not work out that way. And if it doesn't, you can shift and adjust without it being too stressful mentally. So I would say that, 6 weeks, you actually will be recovered from your first race by the time the second race comes along in about 6 weeks. You won't have enough time to grow. So we like to use the rule of thumb 1 day for every mile raced. So that's 26 days of recovery for a marathon. And rules of thumb are not applicable to everybody, but that one is kind of a good sort of thought process. So you should be back to baseline in about a month after the marathon. So it's not like you won't be recovered. It's just your physical fitness won't be improved at that time. So what we want to do is get you really ready for Sydney and get you to the peak point in your fitness that we can, and then recover well afterward and then gradually bring it back up. So this is why it's possible to do really well at 2 races, especially if you're a beginner, because experience matters a lot. And of course, the day matters a lot. Let's say you get a really hot day in Sydney and you get a perfect day in Chicago. Lots of things can happen. So you might do better in Chicago than Sydney. But if the playing field was totally even and if you were a robot, I would expect you to do similar in both.
Nice. Okay. This gives me hope because I thought, okay, is this even workable? But sounds like, there are steps that we can
take. Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
And so you've got a lot of other racing that you're doing. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So I had an issue of always has this race anxiety whenever
Okay.
I join, especially A races. And um, so 2 years ago, I ran Sydney, and pretty much I tried to get it in bed from 7:30 p.m., but I was only able to sleep 2 a.m. And pretty much, and then I woke up at 3:30. So that's why I felt like, okay, I need to kind of take off this mental burden that I put on myself by maybe signing up to more races, even if it
Okay.
is not A races. So that's the reason why I signed up to many half marathon races ahead of Sydney.
Okay.
But then I don't know which one of those races. I think I have some of them on
Yeah.
May and then June, even July. So what's the best, let's say, tune-up race out of those dates? And then which one? Yeah, maybe tune-up race. And I don't know if tune-up race can be just one or it can be two, especially considering that we still have a couple of months ahead.
Okay. Okay. Let me get to that question. But I want to answer or at least talk about the pre-race anxiety first. So when you go to bed at 7 o'clock before your race, were you tired?
No.
No. Okay. So
Yeah.
when you go to bed too early, it's kind of like sitting at the dinner table and waiting to get hungry. Right. So you're not going to be sleepy at 7 o'clock at night. So you need to not try to force yourself to sleep, because that starts a spiral of I need to sleep, I need to sleep, I need to sleep, and you're never going to fall asleep. So the first step is don't try to go to bed if you're not sleepy yet, because that's going to make it worse. You want to try to go to bed at a reasonable hour, of course, but don't try to force it. We can force ourselves awake, but we can't force ourselves asleep. So we don't want to do that. And the second thing is the night before the race is less important than what you get the day before, the week before. So try to focus on good sleep when you don't have those nerves, and then let go of the pressure of sleeping the night before the race. Almost everybody sleeps poorly the night before the race. So when you're trying to force it, you're exacerbating it. So that's what I wanted to talk about there. But as far as your tune-up races, there's a couple of ideal times for a tune-up race. And what I want to say first is you don't have to do tune-up races. So that's a race in service of your main race, but they can be helpful for a couple of reasons. So the first one is, like you said, to get more race experience, to get more race practice, to learn how to not be so nervous about races because you're getting more experience. So that is all great. The next thing a tune-up race can do is give you a sense of your fitness. So you can run a half marathon as a tune-up race for a marathon, and it can tell you what kind of shape you're in. It can be a practice of marathon pace to see how those feel, or it can be an all-out kind of fitness test. So the places that I like to have tune-up races are right before your cycle. So that would be about 12 to 14 weeks out. And that says, okay, this is my baseline fitness. So I want you to run that one hard. So run that at your half marathon pace. Try to get the best out of yourself. And then we can say, okay, your half marathon pace is X. So that means we can guess that your marathon pace would be a little bit slower than that. And that is a really good one to work in. So right before your specific marathon training cycle. The next one that I like is 4 to 6 weeks out from the marathon. And you've got one right at 6 weeks. So that one is perfect. And that one you can do a couple of different ways. You can either race it hard because you're 6 weeks out, you have plenty of time to recover. And that will tell you what your high-end fitness is. That will be like a stress test for you. Or you can run it at marathon pace, which is going to be a lot slower than your half marathon pace. But that gives you a sense of what marathon pace feels like. So that is more of a dress rehearsal of pace. Whereas if you do it at the higher effort, that's a more dress rehearsal of effort, of can you do hard things? I mean, it's still going to be hard running a half marathon at any pace. They're all hard, right? But if you're doing it at your peak, hardest, I'm giving all that I got, that gives you more of a sense of the stressfulness of a marathon. So it's really about what questions you want answered. Now, the risk of going too hard at the half marathon 6 weeks out is that you're going to have to take a little bit of time to recover, which means maybe you won't have room for a marathon specific workout. Maybe it means that you have to take extra days off, but that might be fine because you're answering a good question. You're giving yourself a fitness test. There's plenty of time to get back on track to marathon training. But if you don't want to do that, if you just want the experience, you really want to feel out marathon pace, you want to get that in your muscle memory, then I would say do it more marathon pace. There are a few other hybrid strategies of that, but those are the two main ways you would want to run a half marathon tune-up in service of your marathon. So you've got two of those right at the right spot. So I would say those are great.
Awesome. Okay. Because when I signed up, I didn't know like whether this works out in terms of timing, but glad to hear that potentially it will be okay.
Yeah. And you've also got a couple of other ones earlier. So if I pull it up, they're probably, you've got 3 weekends in a row. You've got a 10K, half marathon. So that's a lot. So we don't want you to be giving your all. So you could give your all on the 10K. That would be just like a really hard workout. You can recover pretty easily from an all out 10K without it really interrupting things. An all out half marathon, you need a little bit extra time. So I would say choose one of those, the 14 weeks out to be your more fitness check. And then the other one should be a fun run. Like try to run an easy pace, try to just jog it. Use it as a long run with thousands of your friends,
Absolutely. That's the plan too. So not all of them will be a race. So definitely it's more like long run and whatever schedule I have that week.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I think all of that really looks great. You do have a 10K race 2 weeks after Chicago. I would say that one should be a fun run. You will probably feel recovered 2 weeks after a marathon, but you won't be. So I would say definitely don't put a lot of hopes in that one.
No, I think a couple of those races I sign up because of the vibe and the kind of the kind of race that attracts a lot of people in and more like being together, like definitely the community and race feel, not the actual races.
I love it. Vibe running. That's the way to do it. For years, I thought I could figure almost anything out with Google, YouTube, and stubbornness. Actually, I still do for the most part. And with my running, that plan worked until it didn't. That's when I realized I was stuck and alone. So I sucked up my pride and joined a coaching community. And that changed my running more than any article I ever read. I didn't care about the group part at first. I just wanted better results for myself. But the group is what made that possible. I wasn't just hiring an expert coach. I was getting a team. And that's why the PR team works so well. People usually join for the custom training plan and the coaching, but why they stay, often for years, is because the community matters more than they imagined. A fun part for me every week is I record an exclusive private podcast for the team, talking through what matters right now, what I'd ignore, and where runners often waste energy worrying. And I love seeing new runners realize quickly that they belong there too. Curious about what it feels like to skip ahead and level up your running in months instead of years? Learn more today at theplantedrunner.com/group. That's theplantedrunner.com/group. The Planted Runner is sponsored by Liquid IV. Did you know that I was a Class 5 whitewater rafting guide in my 20s? For 3 summers, I guided guests down some of the wildest rivers in the West while the sun beat down on us and the icy water kept us cool. Hydration at the time was a rinsed out orange juice jug roped to the raft. Thankfully, today we have superior hydration. Liquid IV delivers longer lasting hydration than water alone. And right now you can get 20% off your first order with code PLANTED at checkout. I love the mandarin orange flavor and rely on it after every workout. Just 1 stick and 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. Powered by Live Hydroscience, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. Soak up unforgettable moments with on-the-go hydration from Liquid IV. Tear, pour, live more. Go to liquidiv.com and get 20% off your first order with code PLANTED at checkout. That's 20% off your first order with code PLANTED at liquidiv.com.
All right. I also have questions about training in general. And I know it's been super helpful, all of the type of workout and then the run that you gave personalized advice to us. But I also want to get a sense of how this sits in kind of longer term. Because as I race, let's say more often, and obviously I train more consistently, and the longer I train, how do you see at what stage someone like me change their paces, or like, and I know I tend to just follow, and obviously being a coachable person, in this case, I'd like to continue what's been given, but I also want to understand the how and why, and how to see this in the longer term.
Okay, so the way that I set paces is off of your most recent races, because when you're racing, you're hopefully giving your very best effort. You're pushing yourself the hardest, and it's a really good way of seeing how hard you can go. When you're alone doing a workout, you can get really close to that, but it's not the same as a race effort. So you also have to take that with a grain of salt, because if you get a bad day, bad weather, bad course, hilly, we've got to factor all that in, that's not representative of your current fitness. And so if you don't have races that are recent, we could do a time trial, and that will get it pretty close. But the thing is, obviously, it's all an educated guess. So I would take your marathon time, your recent marathon time, and put it into a calculator, and it would spit out your various paces at other distances. But we know that a good marathoner is not necessarily someone who's good at the 5K or good at 200-meter sprints, So as we get further away from the race that we've used to set your paces, the more inaccurate your pacing is likely going to be. There are some marathon runners who are great at 200 meters and they're just super fast. And then there's other people that might not be as fast as those. So they're going to be a little bit off. But this is the best way that we can assume your paces. So when I'm giving you a workout and I have these set paces, yes, I want you to follow the paces, but they're really just an estimation of the effort that I'm asking you to do. So it's very common for runners. Let's say I give you a 400-meter repeat workout. Every runner I know wants to hit those numbers right on the dot. That's just how we're wired. We want those numbers, but unless you are training to race the 400, it actually doesn't matter what your paces on your workout are. What really matters is how you feel. But if I told you to run 400 meters based on how you felt that day, you would hate me. So, so I've got to give you paces, but it's really, really about the effort. And so as your race times improve, hopefully they're improving, we will adjust your paces so that your workout paces are also getting faster. But what's more important to me is, we set your paces at the beginning based on a recent race. But if you're going through the training and you're constantly missing your paces, or the opposite, you're hitting all your paces and it just doesn't feel that hard, then I want that feedback from you. I want to know that, number one, this is a trend. It's not just a one-off. You're constantly feeling that the paces aren't a good fit. And then we want to have a discussion about it. Okay, well, are you hitting the paces, but you're absolutely dropping dead after every workout? Or are you hitting the paces and you feel like it's a 7 or an 8 out of 10? So the 7 or 8 out of 10 is what we want to feel most of the time on workouts. Not all, but most of the time. And if you're hitting it and it's just easy breezy, then maybe it's time to adjust your paces and see how those feel. Or maybe it's time for a tune-up race.
Yeah, look, this is super helpful. And maybe if I can categorize the paces into, let's say, workout paces and then the easy run paces. And I know easy run should not be about pace and should be about feeling. But as runners, sometimes we can help but feel, okay, am I getting easier in my easy runs? Or like in terms like, is the pace increase? Do I get faster at a lower effort, right? So what I'm feeling is in the last 2 years, I felt like I probably ran the same range of easy run paces, although obviously there's a spectrum. Sometimes it inch towards the faster end, sometimes to the slower end. Is that a helpful measure to just look at the easy paces range, whether we progress or not, or just forget about it and look at the race times instead?
Forget about your easy pace. Forget about it. That's the quick answer. But the longer answer is I tend to assign fairly slow, easy paces for the majority of people. So I'll use myself as an example, and I'm going to say this in miles. Forgive me, I'm not going to say it in metric. But so my fastest marathon, my marathon pace was about 6:50 per mile. My easy runs were anywhere from 9:30 to 10:30 per mile. So that's 2 to 3 minutes slower than my race pace. That is, most runners would say that's ridiculous. That's way too slow. I chose those easy paces. Now, if you put it into a calculator, it would say, oh, my easy pace is 7:45 or 8 minutes. But I would almost never run that slow for my easy pace because it's more about the volume and the time on feet and being gentle to yourself when you're running easy. If you're banging out hard, easy runs or medium, easy runs, your body is just taking so much more abuse and you need to recover from your recovery runs. And so if you really want to get better as a runner, you need to run more often in general, but you can't have so much impact on your body. So that is the main reason why we want those easy runs to be super slow, sometimes uncomfortably slow, because number one, it does build up your cardiovascular system better, but it also helps you get more mileage in without the impact forces. And it allows you to run faster on your fast days. So I don't want, so yes, technically your easy run will get faster, but you're going to always choose to run way slower as you get better because your easy run is just your conditioning work. It's not about how we prove our fitness. It's often how we prove our restraint. Because that is a big part of the marathon or any kind of endurance sport is we have to be restrained most of the race. We have to run easy when we feel good, and we have to run hard when we feel bad. And that is a practice that is as much mental as it is physical. And you're going to be practicing that every time you run easy. So yes, your easy run could get faster, but you're purposely choosing for it not to.
That sums up all usual runners' questions on this. Super helpful. But I noted one point that you mentioned just now, and that's exactly what I've been trying to incorporate in my last few weeks of base buildings, because I felt like my easy runs is just a preparation for the workout. So I want to achieve the best of the right effort levels for the workout, and therefore the easy run is just preparation for that. But at the same time, you mentioned about volume. Mm-hmm. So what's the right way to see it in the long term? Which means it sounds like in order to improve progressively, forget about the paces for easy runs, but you have to hit certain number of miles. But I also, maybe because I haven't been in marathon training for the last 2 years, and this is going to be my first time back into marathon training, I felt like I only ran obviously much slower than when I was doing marathon training. And this is another runner's curiosity. I felt like I don't feel improving, because am I right to say that's because I never trained the higher volume as I did when I was marathon training? Probably that's also another reason why I felt the easy paces remains the same in the last 2 years.
Well, volume is part of it. So, when you are switching from, say, 10K training to half marathon or marathon, your volume really does need to go up. The catch is, though, we have to do it really gradually, because the faster we increase our volume, the higher the injury risk goes up. Because especially with a newer runner, what happens is our cardiovascular systems improves very quickly, but our bones and tendons and joints don't improve as quickly. Even if we were young, it's not even about age, but yes, this process is even slower past age 35 or 40. But if we keep improving or keep adding distance because our lungs feel good, hey, this is easy, our bones and tendons and joints don't have enough time to catch up. So injury risk increases dramatically if we increase our volume too much. So we want to make sure that happens really slowly. And I'm talking over a couple of years. You don't want to be running, let's say 20K a week and go up to 80K a week, in a few months. That's way too much. There is a 10% rule that people say, but there's a few studies that have come out recently that say even 5% should be the rule of how much you go up each week. So we really want to make sure that's done slowly. And then the other caveat is some athletes just don't respond really well to a lot of volume, especially as we age. And so if you're looking to increase your volume, but you want to do it in a smart, safe way, I would say cross-train. So add some volume on the bike, elliptical, or swimming, something non-impact. And that way you can get this big aerobic engine without as much risk on your joints. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, absolutely. Because try to fit the equation here: pace, volume, a variety of training paces, and then consistency, which I felt like all of them need to fit into one. I think this is a good segue to my even more, curiosity on the mental side of training, because the reason why I felt I keep asking this kind of question, and maybe other runners too, is our tendency to feel like I want to improve fast. Like basically, every day of the we train, we want to feel like we're moving and feeling better and faster. And one of the super enlightening um, moment during my time with the PR team is when I listened to your podcast and you said, the goal of running is not to get faster. Something like that. You mentioned about that. It's in the episode of running is a practice.
Yeah.
To this day is still my gold mine of running podcast. I don't know. I mean, I've listened to it 100 times because it felt like no, you want to be a better runner, but it doesn't always mean faster every day, obviously, and
Right.
also doesn't mean to be getting faster in no time. And like,
Right.
what are we trying to achieve by trying to be? I will be using minute per kilometer. Let's say
That's
from
fine.
7 minutes per kilometer to 3 minutes per kilometer, for example. Like, there's a reason why there's a limit, or like it's harder to get to even faster pace. Sometimes I joke to myself to kind of calm myself down by saying, if everybody can run fast 1 minute per kilometer faster in 1 year, everybody will have run 3 minutes per kilometer or 2 minutes per kilometer fast now. Like, everybody is like all elite athlete. That's
Right.
nonsense. This is why we all still striving to be faster. But that's also what kind of block our mind too. So my question is, this mental side of trainings, and I thank you for all the variety of programs that you've created, the Mental Strength Minute, and then even now the Begin with 10. But then I have a question on, how do we measure progression over time on our mental strength? Do you have some suggestions here? Because I know we can feel and track physical progress, like, oh, I ran faster, oh, I ran with lower effort. But mental, is there a way to feel like, oh, I feel much stronger now than a year ago?
That is a great question. And let me take it back a little bit to the running as a practice thing. So, what is attractive about running? You know, there's lots of things, but one of the things that is attractive about running is the numbers. So you put in the work and you get better. And that is very satisfying. You know, you want to go from point A to point B. And if you do it just a little bit faster than you did it the last time you tried, you feel this sense of accomplishment. But you'll get to a point where you won't have those gains as much as you did. And this is not necessarily about age, although that can be a factor, but it really is about fitness. You know, so when you're a beginner, you can improve, let's say 50%, but then when you're really experienced, you can only improve by 1%, 0.5%, 1 second, you know, and your gains are much, much smaller for the amount of work that you're putting in. So, and the other part of it is that endurance, long distance running, takes a long time to develop. And so we are very impatient, especially when we get those gains right at the beginning. We get that 50% gain. We want that again. We want that hit of dopamine again. But a better way of looking at running is more like the way we look at yoga. We look at yoga as a practice, right? Some people look at it as more athletic and can I get my handstand and can I, turn myself into a pretzel? And some people try to measure their yoga gains, but that is really not the point of yoga. The point of yoga is reaching Shavasana, that the still moment at the end. You do hard work physically so that your mind can rest at the end. That is the peak pose of yoga, is not any of these fancy, arm stands or whatever you're doing, right? The peak pose is after the work is done. And so I think a lot of runners could take a touch of this mentality and bring it into their running. So the running, really, we think about it as the work, as the accomplishment, as the getting there. But really, how many hours are you spending practicing your running? That is the practice. It's not the results. We think it's the results. We want it to be the results, but the results happen on one single day. And our lives, our running lives, are happening every single day. So when we tie ourselves into results, we set ourselves up for a lot of disappointment. We set ourselves up for great joy too. Believe me, I love results. I have big goals and I love hitting those goals too. I get that part. But that's just one moment in time. Whereas your entire running journey truly is a journey. It truly is a practice. And so if we can hold our goals a little looser, I think we can enjoy the experience a lot more instead of just the clock. So chasing the clock is one very satisfying part of running. But if that's the only thing you like about running, then you're not going to be a runner very long.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And even I reach a point now, I felt like you mentioned about non-time goals for a race, right? And like that's sometimes be seen as a secondary goal. I now think like it should be the primary goal.
Yes.
Like the race time should not be like the very first reason why we run. Let's imagine we don't run with watch. We still want to feel good. We still want, let's say, what I want to picture is when I go out on the race day, what I want to achieve is RPE 9 at the end of the race. Like, doesn't matter whether that translates into a PB or not, but I want to give all out to the level that the RPE thing. Like even the RPE is like arbitrary because it's more like what I want to feel throughout the race and by the end, by the end of the race. So hopefully that kind of reduced the performance anxiety or race anxiety a little bit now. But yeah, I want to get like even more systematic ways to tackle and be mentally strong.
Yeah. And I think trying to measure the mental strength part, I think that is also trying to measure your running. It's kind of like you're trying to put a clock on your mental strength. So you will feel differently before a race once you practice transforming your anxiety into excitement, once you practice understanding that your racing heart and your worried thinking, once you understand that that is actually a benefit, that's actually your body trying to prepare you to do something hard. Once you start working on shifting your mentality, you will notice more calm. And specifically on race anxiety, I know you talked about how you feel mentally strong during workouts, but sometimes you still have that during races. So one thing that might help, do you listen to music when you're warming up?
Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes. What kind of music? Is it like pump up music?
Yeah. Well, if it's easy run, just whatever music. But if it's a workout, preparing for a workout, then it's a pump up one.
Okay. Let's try this for you and try it in practice first and start your warm up for a workout that's hard. When you're warming up or when you're getting ready to race, switch to calm music. So whether that's classical or whether that's, sort of yoga music or spa music or whatever, start listening to something that actually brings down your anxiety. I don't think you have a problem getting pumped up. I think that's actually what you need to work on is bringing down your nervous system just a touch so that you can perform with calm clarity instead of that amped up, I've got to go. You've got plenty of the gotta go, so do an experiment for me and report back. Try listening to calm music. You can switch to pump up music like during the race or during the workout if you want, But for your prep, when you feel the most nervous, try using that as a little bit of a crutch to bring you down and see if that helps.
We'll definitely try this for my long run tomorrow.
Okay.
So that's super helpful. Thank you so much.
I mean, it might not work, but it's a little trick. We always think of these athletes, they've got their headphones on, the elite athletes. We think that they're listening to like this pump up hard rap music or something like that. They're probably listening to Mozart. So try that and see. And I would love to hear how it goes.
Amazing. All right. That's amazing. I'm going to try a lot of the new tips I learned today.
Okay, great. So we should probably get this wrapped up pretty soon, but you've talked a little bit about your experience on the team. I would love to hear anything else that if somebody was thinking about joining the PR team, what has been your experience? Why did you sign up? What keeps you there? And what has been surprising about it?
Yeah. Number one, I've always been a solo runner. And I still am a solo runner. Even my long runs, I prefer to do it alone, my workout and all that. So because I can focus with what I'm committed to do that day. But obviously the team members there, all kinds of backgrounds, all kinds of paces. So this is my, not mantra, but how I feel like approaching running. I want to be in a place where I find playful connection and flow. So obviously the running is what it gives the flow, and I also get the flow from learning new how others experience it, and obviously your advice in the team podcast as well. And then it has to be connected. This is how I feel the connection, even if I don't run physically with them. And then finally, it's playful and like it's probably, you said this, I think a while ago, like it's probably the only place where we can be frank with ourselves in terms of running, because everybody else probably find my friend here, my family here about running. It's like, why are you talking running again and again? But
they've had enough.
Group, they've had enough. But in this group, it's like very welcome. And I like how everyone is so, it's not like not like in some Instagram comments or some Facebook group that's like unfiltered. Well, it's also not filtered, but like everybody feels like we found the place for us to feel safe and share. So that's the community part. But I also want to add one thing is how I find this is probably so I had a different coach before I joined PRT, but I stick longer in this group is because the mental training and learning that I found from you and everyone in this group, I've never seen this in my previous course or in other places. Because, I felt like these days with AI and like training plan is probably easy to get now, some other apps too, right? But maybe it will give me as a beginner runner probably about the same result if I aim for the result alone. But all of this mental grit and how it changes how I see running, how I see life, thanks to this experience. Like there's so many parallels. I felt like, wow, okay, this is like why we need actual human and actual people and community to run along with.
That is honestly the highest compliment that I could ever receive. The mental part of it is a passion of mine. It's something that I struggled with, and it's something that fascinates me. So making it a core part of this group and the work that I do is honestly my passion even more than running. So I love hearing that. It makes me feel so good that it's actually landing with people and helping people. So I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you, and keep doing it.
I will. I definitely will. All right. Well, we're going to wrap this up, Danny. If people are listening to this and they want to follow your journey, what's the best way for them to do that?
most of what I share online as my journey is just drenching in the humidity of Singapore and shoe shopping. So, but they can find me on Instagram at Zidaniy, Zidaniey. I know it's a little bit chunky, but that's how we use handles.
I will put it in the show notes. Well, it was great talking with you, Danny. You are such a light to have on the team, always inspiring. I love it when you post. You have great race pictures, and it's super fun being a part of your journey.
Fantastic. Thank you so much again for having me, and look forward to even more exciting times with the PR team.
And now it's time for this week's Mental Strength Minute. Fortify your mind in 60 seconds or less. Today's topic is confidence is a choice. One of the most important things to have before doing anything hard is confidence. But how can you feel confidence if you're about to do something you've never done before? The answer is that confidence is not a feeling, it's a choice. You can choose to have faith that things will go well. And if they don't go well, you can choose to be confident that you will pivot and make the best choice with whatever happens. Because the doubt that you feel before doing something hard is also a choice. It's a made-up story about the future that your brain is creating to make you feel safe. Just know you have the free will to choose confidence instead of waiting to feel it.
Thank you for listening to The Planted Runner, part of the Evergreen Podcast Network. Don't forget that you can enter to win a free custom training plan for your next race and get featured on the show. Just write an Apple Podcast review and enter at theplantedrunner.com/PRLab. Of course, reviews are the number one way to boost this show's reach, and it's a great way to tell me what you'd like to hear next because I read every single one. Have a great run today.